Just a few years ago, American and Canadian border towns would light up every weekend. Canadians would drive for hours just to sit down for a meal at their favorite American chains. Now those same parking lots sit empty, tables are bare, and even brands once known around the world can't keep customers coming. So what happened that made Canadians stop eating in the US? How high have prices climbed that even the most loyal diners are walking away? And when that steady flow of cross-border customers disappears, what does it mean for American chains? Will Americans themselves still want to walk through the door? In today's video, we are breaking down the 10 American restaurant chains that are falling apart after losing their Canadian customers, and why this hits directly at your wallet and your choices. These chains aren't just losing Canadian diners, they are losing the trust of Americans too. Number 1. McDonald's. Do you remember the last time you saw a McDonald's parking lot near the US-Canada border completely full? For years, weekends, they were always packed. Families from Canada would drive over just to have a Big Mac, an ice-cold Coke, and a side of golden crispy fries. Now those lines of cars are gone. A Big Mac combo in the US now averages over $9, while just across the border in Canada it's about $7. That might not sound like much, but for a family of 4 it means paying $10 more for a single lunch. And that's before you even count the fact that US portions are smaller than they used to be with some ingredients swapped out, because import costs from Canada have gone up due to tariffs. Many Canadians have said flat out there's no reason to cross the border just for McDonald's, when they can get the same brand at home for less money with bigger portions and without paying extra for gas and border taxes. Why bother? The problem is, it's not just border locations taking the hit. McDonald's sales have slowed in several states, especially in places that once relied heavily on Canadian customers like Washington, New York, and Michigan. When that international crowd disappears, the burden of keeping the business afloat falls entirely on American consumers who are already feeling the pinch of inflation and higher food prices. See the dangerous loop here. Higher prices push Canadian customers away. Sales drop. McDonald's raises prices again to make up for losses. Americans start rethinking their visits too. And once people change their eating habits, they rarely come back. McDonald's was once a global icon, a place everyone knew as a safe bet for a quick meal. But right now, with one of its most loyal customer groups gone, the question is no longer when McDonald's will lower prices. It's whether the brand can even hold its ground in its own backyard. And if even McDonald's is losing customers over pricing and policy, what chance do other chains have? Let's take a look at a place that used to be the #1 seafood destination for Canadians every weekend. Number 2. Red Lobster. If you've ever lived near the US-Canada border, you know what it's like to walk into a Red Lobster on the weekend and find it packed to the brim. Inside you'd hear laughter, the crack of lobster shells, and smell warm butter melting over the lobster tails. Many tables were booked a week in advance, especially by Canadian families who treated it as a reward after a long day trip. That magic started fading about 2 years ago. For the first time, many Canadian customers noticed that a familiar ultimate feast in the US now cost more than a meal at an upscale seafood place back home. And price wasn't the only issue. The food didn't taste as fresh. Seafood that used to come directly from Canadian ports or the North Atlantic now carried higher tariffs, forcing Red Lobster to switch to other suppliers farther away with longer storage times. At first, people hoped it was temporary. Canadians came back expecting bright red lobster plump shrimp and steaming cheddar biscuits. Instead, they left disappointed. Smaller portions, blander flavors, and slower service because of staff cuts. The dangerous cycle began: lose Canadian customers, sales drop, Red Lobster shuts down locations in Maine, Washington, and Minnesota. Loyal American customers find fewer restaurants nearby. And when distance becomes a factor, the habit of stopping by gets broken. Worse yet, Red Lobster was seen as a culinary bridge between the two countries. When that bridge broke, the brand lost a unique edge. Today, in many border towns, the Red Lobster signs have been taken down and replaced with "Cold for Lease" boards. Could you imagine a brand that once had both sides of the border waiting for a table ending up here? And if Red Lobster, with its one-of-a-kind seafood experience, can't hold on to its customers, what will happen to steakhouses where competition is even more cutthroat? Next, let's step into the story of Outback Steakhouse, a place both Americans and Canadians once saw as the go-to spot for a great night of grilled meat. Number 3. Outback Steakhouse. It's 7 in the evening, a light rain is falling, and at an Outback Steakhouse in the Buffalo suburbs just shy of the Canadian border. Only a few tables are occupied. One employee stands at the door, eyes glancing toward the parking lot as if waiting for someone to walk in. But for 15 straight minutes, the door never opens. Less than a 20-minute drive away, a local steakhouse in Fort Erie, Canada is packed to the brim, filled with the sound of clinking silverware and warm bursts of laughter. The contrast makes you wonder what happened to create such a huge gap. Outback used to be a weekend favorite for plenty of Canadian families. Perfectly medium-cooked steaks, creamy mashed potatoes, and that crispy golden bloomin' onion. It was the kind of meal worth crossing the border for. But those trips have been happening less and less. Not because Canadians suddenly lost their love for steak, but because the quality no longer feels worth the price. Back home, a steak dinner of similar quality can run 10 to 15% cheaper. And to make matters worse, many of the signature sides Outback was known for in the US have either vanished from the menu or been trimmed down so much they're barely recognizable. The root cause lies in supply. The beef, once imported directly from Canada, prized for its tenderness and flavor, now faces new tariffs, forcing Outback to switch to more distant suppliers. Longer transport times mean the meat just isn't as fresh. It's the kind of change you won't see printed on a menu, but you'll notice the moment you cut into your first bite. What's troubling for Americans is that Outback hasn't just lost Canadian customers. It's lost an unspoken promise, the promise of offering something worth traveling for. Once that fades, the distance between empty tables in Buffalo and the long lines in Fort Erie isn't just a few miles. It's a gap in trust. And if a nationwide steakhouse chain can be shaken like this, what's happening to the brands tied to summer memories and childhood nostalgia for millions of people, like Dairy Queen? Number 4, Dairy Queen. In summertime, the whir of the ice cream machine and the sight of a perfectly swirled blizzard are all you need to know. Dairy Queen is open for business. In border towns, it used to be a must-stop for Canadian families driving into the US. The kids would run up to pick their ice cream. The adults would order hot dogs or burgers with a cold soda, all under a blazing golden sun. These days, that picture is rare. At many Dairy Queens on the US side, especially in Vermont and New York, the number of Canadian customers has dropped sharply. Part of the reason is price. Ice cream and fast food here have jumped 15 to 20% in just over a year. The other part, smaller portions and fewer toppings. It's not just the quantity. Many ingredients that once came from Canada, like rich maple syrup and high-fat milk, now face new tariffs, driving up costs. Instead of holding the line on quality, some locations have switched to cheaper alternatives. For Canadians used to that thick, creamy taste, the difference is obvious. What makes it even tougher is that Dairy Queen locations in Canada are doing the exact opposite. Rolling out promotions, adding new flavors, and keeping prices steady. With that side-by-side comparison, it's hard for Canadians to justify crossing the border for a blizzard that doesn't measure up. There are still glimmers of hope. A few Dairy Queen locations in the US, especially in tourist areas, work hard to keep the service friendly and the treats picture perfect. But that hope runs into reality fast when the bill for a family of 4 lands near $40. For that price, many Canadians decide to stay home, enjoy ice cream in the park, or pick up a tub from the grocery store. As Canadian foot traffic fades, Dairy Queen loses more than just sales. It loses a piece of cross-border culture that's been alive for decades. And if summer ice cream can't tempt people to make the trip, the question becomes, is there any fast food chain left that can? That question brings us to a brand that once dominated the Asian fast food scene in America, Panda Express. But even there, the headwinds from Canada are blowing stronger than ever. Number 5, Panda Express. For many Canadians, Panda Express used to be a fun, quick stop when crossing into the US. It wasn't a fancy restaurant, but those boxes of hot orange chicken chow mein and the signature stir-fry aroma were enough to make a cross-border shopping trip feel complete. In the past, stepping inside meant seeing long lines of both American and Canadian customers. A full portion of orange chicken drenched in rich sauce with a free side dish, if you happen to catch a promotion. Many Canadians considered it a special treat whenever they came to the US. But in recent months, diners have started noticing changes, unpleasant ones. Portions have visibly shrunk, especially the orange chicken. Less sauce, more breading. One customer from Ontario remarked that their favorite meal now looks like half a portion compared to before. The issue isn't just rising costs. Certain key ingredients, like vegetables and some frozen chicken products that used to be imported from Canada, or sourced through affiliated distributors, are now subject to higher tariffs. Panda Express has had to look for domestic or more distant suppliers, which led to changes in recipes and smaller portions to offset expenses. Ironically, while Panda Express in the US is struggling, its Canadian locations have kept both prices and quality steady. A similar meal in Toronto or Vancouver still comes in full portions, and sometimes costs less than on the US side. This makes many Canadians wonder why drive to the US just to get less for more money. The disappointment only grows when you compare the experience. Panda Express outlets in US malls used to buzz with activity, the smell of stir-fry wafting down the hallways. Now many counter-stand, half-empty staff no longer offer samples, and the lively atmosphere is fading. As Panda Express loses its appeal, a small piece of Canadians' border-crossing habit fades with it. And if even an Asian fast food chain, famous for quick service and reasonable prices, can't keep its charm, what will happen to party-themed brands like TGI Fridays? Number 6. TGI Fridays. TGI Fridays has always felt like walking into a weekend party no matter the day. Warm golden lighting, familiar pop music, and a menu full of fun food once made it a favorite hangout for both Americans and Canadians. In the past, many Canadian families treated TGI Fridays as the final stop after a day of shopping in the US. They'd grab seats at the bar or near the windows, order a big appetizer combo, and share burgers, ribs, or rich creamy pasta. That atmosphere could turn an ordinary trip into a memorable one. Recently, however, that party vibe has shifted. Some Canadian guests returning after a year-long break have noticed the menu isn't as varied as before. Familiar dishes have disappeared, portions are smaller, and prices have jumped noticeably. A once generous plate of ribs now has just a few large bones, less meat, and thinner sauce. Part of the reason lies in ingredients. Certain seasonings and pre-prepped items that used to come from Canada now face tariffs, pushing costs up. Instead of maintaining quality, some branches have adjusted recipes to cut expenses. Unfortunately, stripping away the flavors that once kept customers coming back. Canadians have noticed more than just changes to the food. The atmosphere feels different too. Less laughter, more empty tables, fewer staff, and slower service. When the expectation of a lively dinner isn't met, disappointment can quickly turn into frustration. Ironically, some TGI Fridays locations in Canada have kept diverse menus and tempting promotions. The contrast has convinced many Canadians to dine at home instead of crossing the border, and for a brand built on the fun weekend experience, losing customers willing to spend generously is a major blow. Which raises the question if TGI Fridays, a place that once made Canadians feel their US trip was worth every penny, can't hold on to its appeal. What's in store for fast food giants like Subway that rely on sheer customer volume? Number 7. Subway. In just 6 months, more than 200 Subway locations in the US have shut down, many of them in states close to the Canadian border. This isn't just a cold statistic in a financial report. It's the sight of empty storefronts, fading signs, and the disappearance of that familiar fresh-baked bread smell from entire neighborhoods. Why has it happened so quickly? Part of the answer lies with Canadian customers who once made up a significant share of Subway's sales in these areas. In the past, many Canadians crossed the border to build their own sandwiches for a cheaper price, and with a wider variety of toppings. But when the price of a single sandwich in the US jumps by $2, $3 compared to just a year ago, while the portion size gets smaller, the reason to make that trip practically vanishes. Ingredients are another big factor. Certain deli meats, cheeses, and fresh vegetables that used to be imported from Canada now face tariffs, driving costs higher. Subway has been forced to remove some popular toppings or switch to substitute ingredients, changing the taste. For Canadian customers, used to the old flavor, the change feels like eating a knockoff version of the Subway they once loved. The impact goes beyond the border. Losing a steady stream of Canadian customers means falling revenue, which has pushed many US locations to cut staff and reduce opening hours. In some small towns, Subway has disappeared altogether, taking away what used to be a trusted option for quick, healthy meals. Meanwhile, Subway locations in Canada have kept the original recipes, reasonable prices, and regular promotions. The contrast makes Canadians even more reluctant to return to the US side. And for Americans who are used to the lively atmosphere of a busy Subway, walking into an empty shop with fewer choices only deepens concerns about the brand's future. Subway's story isn't just about losing customers from a neighboring country. It's a warning that even brands built on familiarity can be eroded by a few quiet changes. And that warning is now knocking on the doors of chains that thrive on energy and sports, like Buffalo Wild Wings. Number 8. Buffalo Wild Wings. The championship football game is on the big screens are showing every thrilling play. This should be the moment when Buffalo Wild Wings is packed with cheers, mixing with the smell of crispy fried wings and spicy sauce. But at a location near the US-Canada border, the scene is different. The empty gaps between tables are so wide that servers no longer have to weave through crowds. This silence is strange when you remember that just a few years ago, nights like this were the restaurant's goldmine. Canadian customers often cross the border for the electric atmosphere, large wings, diverse sauces and prices lower than back home. For many friend groups, it was a seasonal tradition. So what changed? The price of chicken wings in the US has surged since tariffs on chicken imports from Canada and other countries took effect. Buffalo Wild Wings has had to source ingredients from farther away, driving up transport and storage costs. Some locations have cut portion sizes or tweaked sauce recipes to save money. For Canadian customers who are quick to notice flavor differences, one bite is enough to know. These aren't the wings they remember. It's not just the food that's changed. Some restaurants have reduced the number of TVs or cut staff to control expenses. Without the buzz and quick service, Buffalo Wild Wings loses a key reason customers once crossed the border during sports season. Meanwhile, sports bars in Canada are seizing the opportunity, promoting wings with the same portions, same prices, and hosting group watch events for fans. This makes Canadians ask why spend the time and money to cross into the US for a lesser experience. Buffalo Wild Wings was once a symbol of collective joy of endless sports nights with friends. But when the Canadian crowd, which brought both noise and revenue, no longer shows up, that atmosphere fades. And it raises the question, what will happen to a brand built on the feeling of being as cozy as home, like Cracker Barrel, when it loses such a unique audience? Number 9. Cracker Barrel. In the past quarter, 3 Cracker Barrel locations near the New York border reported revenue drops of more than 18% compared to the same period last year. What these stores have in common is a sharp decline in Canadian customers, a group that used to account for nearly 1/3 of total weekend tables served. In the past, Canadians saw Cracker Barrel as a worth-it choice for an American-style breakfast or lunch, large portions, and better prices than restaurants back home. But now a pancake combo in the US costs nearly $4 more with smaller portions, fewer slices of bacon, less maple syrup, and some side dishes removed. The problem starts with ingredient costs. Bacon butter and maple syrup, once sourced directly from Canada or Canadian distributors, now face new tariffs. Some branches have switched to domestic or out-of-state suppliers, but prices remain high and the quality is different. For Canadian customers familiar with the original taste, this difference is enough to keep them from coming back. As Canadian customers decline, a ripple effect begins. On weekends, instead of being full from morning until noon, many branches now have twice as many empty tables as before. Revenue drops force them to cut staff hours and limit promotions. This in turn reduces appeal to local American customers who are also tightening their budgets. Meanwhile, family restaurants and smaller chains in Canada are seizing the moment. They advertise large portions, same prices, and focus on dishes similar to Cracker Barrels. Canadians quickly realize they can save time and money while still getting a quality breakfast. Cracker Barrel built its brand on the promise of a hearty, delicious meal at a fair price. But when that advantage is gone, so is the main reason Canadians would cross the border to eat there. With cost pressures mounting and competition just across the border, things won't be easy to turn around anytime soon. This brings us to the final brand on the list, Dennys, which has relied on cross-border customers day and night. And if the trend continues, even the advantage of being open 24/7 may not be enough to save them. Number 10. Dennys. Dennys internal reports from several Dennys locations in Michigan and Washington, 2 areas right next to the Canadian border, show that late-night traffic is down by as much as 27% compared to last year. Notably, the sharpest drop coincided with the period when new U.S. tariffs on goods from Canada took effect. Denny's used to draw Canadians with its 24/7 hours quick service and affordable prices for a filling meal after shopping or a long trip. But now a Grand Slam breakfast in the US costs $3, $4 more than last year with smaller portions. Less meat, smaller servings of hash browns, and in some locations, coffee refills are no longer free. The main reason is higher ingredient costs. Many staples like eggs, deli meats, butter, and milk, often imported from or distributed through Canada, now face tariffs. To maintain profits, branches have had to cut portion sizes and adjust menus. For Canadians used to bigger portions and lower prices, this removes the incentive to cross the border for a midnight meal. The result during hours that used to be busy, after 10 p.m. or in the early morning, more empty tables, fewer staff, and a less lively, open, all-night atmosphere. Some locations are even considering closing overnight to save on operating costs, which would erode Denny's signature advantage even further. Meanwhile, late-night diners in Canada are quickly filling the gap. They offer similar menus at stable prices and even run weekend promotions, the exact time Denny's used to dominate. Denny's is not only losing Canadian customers, but also facing a decline in local American patrons who are also feeling the pinch of higher prices and smaller portions. When the open anytime advantage can no longer make up for a diminished experience, the future of border area branches looks grim if this trend continues. And when even a brand with unlimited hours like Denny's can't escape the impact of losing Canadian customers, it's clear this isn't just a temporary issue. It's a sign of a long-term shift in cross-border dining habits. From McDonald's to Denny's, the story is the same. When Canadian customers disappear, revenue falls, quality changes, and even American customer loyalty wavers. Each brand in this list once had its own strengths to attract cross-border customers. Big portions, fair prices, unique atmosphere. But all now face the same pressure-rising costs due to tariffs changes that quickly show up in the menu service and overall vibe. What's more worrying is that this doesn't seem to be a temporary trend. Once Canadians find better options at home, it will only get harder to bring them back. And once that steady stream of customers is gone, these chains will have to fight much harder to keep even their American base.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.